Hi, good morning. It's great to be here today. We've been involved with the accreditation process since the days of the pilots. Jenny Murdoch's here, our teaching lead. She's been to many of these meetings, but it's my first time. And she's always brought back lots of great practice to the department. So it's fantastic to be here today. I'm James. I'm the head of the Department of Biological Sciences at Royal Holloway. And my talk is about a EDI-focused peer mentoring scheme that I helped to set up in the School of Life Sciences and the environment of which we're a part. The peer mentoring scheme was designed and it was funded on the back of our efforts to reduce our awarding gaps. And we have significant demographic awarding gaps, just as I'm sure you will have at your institution, and there are all sorts of sources of data where you can go to find out your awarding gaps. What's on the screen is from the Office for Students. The Office for Students have a number of dashboards showing sector level, institutional level data and all the rest of it, and you'll have dashboards from your own institution as well. But I've just picked off a couple of examples here. So here, for instance, we've got the awarding gap at Royal Holloway between students coming from the first to the fifth quintile in the Index for Multiple Deprivations, the IMD gap. And here is our awarding gaps for some of our ethnic groups. And the top one here is the black awarding gap. So this is the difference between the proportion of black students at Royal Holloway getting firsts or 2-1s relative to white students, and it's running pretty high, close to about 20%. This is across the institution, but it's very similar in our school, it's very similar in our department, and it's very similar across biological sciences nationwide. It's a significant, long-standing awarding gap. And there are some other ethnic groups down here as well with lower but still significant awarding gaps. So we got some funding to try and address this in our school, and it's in our APP. Christelle mentioned, one of our previous speakers mentioned the Access and Participation Plan. It was the first speaker. We've pledged to reduce these gaps. Whenever one talks to colleagues about these gaps, the first response that one often gets is, well, these students are coming from worse schools, they're coming with worse A-levels or other sorts of qualifications. It isn't the case. So, I mean, you can find this pretty easily, that lots of these different demographics do better than white kids at school. This is some GCSE data. This is from the Sewell report from 2021. I won't go through it in detail. You can check it out yourself. Tony Sewell, the Commission on Racial and Ethnic Disparities. There are lots of demographic groups that do better than white students at GCSE, and the same is true at A-level. And when you look at those groups coming in with controlling for A-levels, then you find that the white students are coming out on top. So there's something that we're not doing so well at the university level to make sure that all students are getting the degrees that they deserve. So the approach that we took was informed by evidence and particularly by TASO, which is transforming student outcomes. This is a group, part of the What Works movement. It's funded by the Office for Students, which collates data on what works in addressing awarding gaps and other sorts of risks to equity. And one of the solutions in their toolkit was mentoring That's the route that we decided to go down. So starting in 2022, we've been trialling a universal, highly structured peer mentoring scheme in our school. Universal in that it's open to all of our students and structured in the way that I'll describe. And these figures that I'm showing you are from 2022, 2023, but we've been running it every year since, and now we're scaling it up. So the first year, this is some sort of example data. The first year we did it, we got particularly, we really went into the evaluation side of things very heavily, so that's why I'm showing you this data. So we got 68 student mentors, recruited mostly as second-year undergraduates. We trained them up, we made a handbook for them, and this was supported by all of the EDI staff leads in our departments. We've got 5 departments in our school. And we paid those students to be mentors to the incoming first-year students. So we paid for training, 3 hours of training, and 4 face-to-face meetings with their mentees across the first term. So that came out as about £100 per mentor. So if you're thinking of setting up a similar system at your institution, that's the sort of money you're talking about. And we got 100, in 2022, we got about 100 first-year students signing up as mentees. This year, we're up to about 160. So we've increased the size over the years. And about half the students who signed up were black and global minority students, and over half of them were first in family, which is greater than the proportion that we have in our school. So that was really gratifying, that even though we were advertising this scheme to everybody, we were getting disproportionate demand from those groups of students that we were particularly interested in. And we had midterm and end-of-term meetings where we brought all the peer mentors together into the same room, and we were able to get feedback on how things were going. And then we had lots of evaluations. We had, like I say, particularly lots of evaluations the first year that we did this, focus groups, all sorts of things, and data. I won't spend very long on this slide, but it gives you an idea of the level of structure that we have in the scheme. So we're not just sending off the students and letting them do their own thing. It's highly structured, so they know which weeks to meet their students. They've got a certain amount of flexibility, of course, but we keep them sort of on a timetable. And they can look in the handbook and find out all sorts of sort of example questions, to use if the conversation gets slow. And it's all about getting students up to speed in their first year. So it's about that transition from high school and college to university life. Here are a few results from our evaluations. So we did a pre-post survey of our mentees, and we found statistically significant increases in measures of confidence. And some of these questions, you won't be able to read them. I'll read out a few. I feel confident about my studies, about managing my time, about socializing with staff members. All of those went up over the course of the program. And we also saw decreasing worries. So I feel worried about adapting to university life. That was a big fall in that. And gratifyingly, mentees from the demographic groups that we were particularly interested in reported a greater increase in confidence about socializing with their peers and managing their finances than the white mentees did. So all of the mentees benefited, but there was evidence that some students benefited more than others. Mentees also engaged more than non-mentees, so they logged into our virtual learning environment at almost twice the rate of non-participants. Of course, that might be because it's a self-selecting group to some extent. We can't rule that out. But there was greater engagement. There was greater in-person attendance as well. And we had some great feedback from the mentors. When we gathered the mentors together, we had fantastic sessions finding out what was working well in the program, what was not working so well. This is an example of some notes that I took from one of those meetings, and a quote that I pull out there. I wished someone was there to guide me in my first year, so I was glad to help others. It really benefited the mentors as well. They very much value this work. So the things that came out as particularly useful: departmental relevance, which was interesting to us because we set it up as quite a high-level scheme that was mostly around the transition and life skills going to university, but the students did find it very useful to be paired up with mentors in the same department so that they could also address those more specific study skills questions. And one of the areas of improvement that we addressed was group sizes. So we started off with one-to-one meetings, but we've gone now to 1-to-2 or 1-to-3 meetings. So still small groups, but not quite as small as we started with. And we found from our data that the mentees were scoring better. This is module level data. These are mentees versus non-mentees. And also our awarding gaps have gone down a little bit in the school. It's not amazing, but this is a difficult problem. So we're pleased to see those numbers drifting down just a little bit over the last few years. So there's some evidence that we are tackling those awarding gaps. PEMENTOS was associated with improvements in engagement and achievement. Causation remains unclear. Of course it does, because you've got a self-selecting group. But we're scaling up across the university for the new APP, so we've got hundreds of thousands of pounds in funding over the next 4 years to do this on a much bigger scale across the university, and we're aiming to reduce our demographic awarding gaps further across the institution. Thanks to all the EDI leads who helped with this work. Thanks very much for your attention.